How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Bodacious Rant. I hope everybody's having a fantastic day. I'm sorry, I was trying to be creepy. I can't do it. Or I probably could, but I'm going to drive myself insane. Speaking of creepy, we're talking about a movie that I had no intention of seeing, and I didn't know how it was going to be, but it was actually kind of surprising, and that is the latest movie from M. Night Shyamalan, which is Trap, starring Josh Hartnett, M. Night Shyamalan's daughter, Suleika Shyamalan, or just Suleika. I could be saying that wrong, so I apologize if I am. Allison Pill from like Scott Pilgrim and a slew of other things. Yeah, it's a decent amount of actors and stuff like that. Mostly random actors, in my opinion, but this is a non-spoiler review, so if you do happen to enjoy the video, please give us a like, ring the bell to stay up to date for notifications, and of course subscribe. We do appreciate you all, and again, can't thank you guys enough for watching every week. So this movie, obviously, it takes place definitely during a present day where Josh Hartnett is taking his daughter to a concert of a very famous artist, kind of like a Taylor Swift character, essentially. Mm-hmm. And as he gets there, he starts noticing that there's a lot of police presence and a lot of secure spaces, and that's when a worker at the event tells him, oh, there's a serial killer here, and they plan this concert as a trap, so he can't get out. And, essentially it just kind of goes from there. From the trailers, obviously, Josh Hartnett is the killer and tries to find a way, so that's literally what this movie's about. And I hate to say it, it's like, after watching it, I kind of wish the trailers didn't do that, or I think the movie kind of did a better way of making it more surprising. I mean, it's kind of hard to describe. Like, I know that's the point of the movie, but I feel like it's one of those things. They could have done a better job about marketing it, or even letting it come out better during the movie. Does that make sense, Bern, or am I just being picky as hell?
Do you wish it was like more of a reveal, like in the movie, that he is the killer?
I think so. Like, it's like, I wish we kind of had more vibes that, like, I think it was kind of one of those things when I was watching it, like, I wish there was a little bit more of like a build up to that reveal. Just because, I mean, not that Josh Hartnett did a bad job or anything. I'm not blaming the actors on it. I just think written-wise, it could have been a little bit better that way, and even the marketing, I don't know if they should have necessarily leaned into it. Because the whole time I was watching the trailers, I'm like, how is this going to work? Like, why do we want to root for this guy? And it's not that I didn't, but it was just Josh Hartnett, man. He's such a lovable, like, actor, even when he's playing the biggest D-bags possible. Again, ever since I saw his comeback in Wrath of Man, I was like, damn, like, it's good to see him back in these things. We were just talking about that in the Bear Season 3 review. And so even in this one, where he's just a cold-blooded, calculating serial killer, it's still just, it's like, damn, I can't help but want this guy to kind of make it out. But at the same time, I don't. So I will say again, like, as I'm talking, he is the best part of this movie. His acting is pretty on point, even though we were just talking about this before, that the dialogue is not very well written. So he does what he can. All the actors do what they can with it. Mm-hmm. And I think it's kind of like almost that old school, like, Hollywood way of, like, really overselling certain pieces of dialogue. So that could be it. But other than that, Bern, what did you think about it before I keep going?
Yeah, I guess I was the opposite of you coming into this, where it was the premise that got me excited for this movie. The idea of, you have this evil person in this big environment where he's amongst a bunch of civilians, and has to find a way out. The idea of this cat and mouse game where the point of view is through the eyes of the bad guy, essentially. So yeah, I was like, okay, how is Shyamalan going to execute this, and how is he going to bring his sort of sensibilities into it? Because if you're coming into a Shyamalan movie, you're kind of expecting like another shoe to drop at some point. You know that there's things aren't always as they seem going into his movies. So it's like that was kind of the excitement. It's like, okay, this is an interesting premise on its own. How is he going to compound that later on? So coming into this one, especially after Knock at the Cabin, I was just like, okay, let's see how this does, because he's a very hit and miss director, especially as of late, where he had a real good run in his first few movies, and then sort of in the middle there just kind of completely lost his way, and then had a comeback, a few years ago. And then since then, it's been, give and take where, I've liked some of the things that he's done and haven't liked a lot of the others. So really, it was just kind of a bit of a gamble coming into this one. And for me, it was a pretty big mixed bag. I'll say that. I do agree with you. I think Josh Hartnett is sort of the best part of this movie, and he sort of has to be. Like you mentioned, since it's through his point of view, and we're following this character who is a villain. He has to make us, like you said, kind of want to root for him almost. And with it being Josh Hartnett, look, he was old 2000s heartthrob, so he's still got the looks obviously, but he's also got that charisma about him. He has that everyman sensibility about him, so where yeah, you're kind of interested in seeing, how is this guy gonna get out of this crazy situation where he's kind of a bird in a cage. How is he gonna find his way out of there? And the way that him and M Night sort of staged that and sort of play around with that is where I thought the movie really shined for me. Um, Other than that, I think there wasn't really a lot that worked for me outside of that aspect. Not to spoil anything that happens later on, but I think the movie worked best when it focused on those elements, and then when it tried to do other things, I felt like it didn't deliver on the ideas that I was kind of sold on coming into this movie. I thought, the actress that played his daughter, Ariel Donahue, I thought she did pretty good. I did like their back and forth, and that was kind of something I wanted a little bit more of throughout the movie. But their scenes together were pretty fun, and I thought they sold that dynamic pretty well. And yeah, just the thriller aspect of it in that sort of cat and mouse game was fun while it lasted. But other than that, obviously can't go into details about it. But it's kind of where it faltered for me, where there were certain ideas that I did find interesting initially, like in concept. And it's just that once we got into the execution of it, it kind of left me thinking, this was a lot more interesting earlier than it is now.
That's fair. I was kind of all over the place with the movie just because the way it was paced, I would say, like it at one point I thought, man, this movie's going by way too quick, and we still have this much time left. Like, what else can we do it on? But then it's like in the second half, I was like, okay, things are getting interesting. So I was kind of it, it's like I like both aspects of like the halves of the movie, but it felt like it was just a little too unbalanced. And then I did really like M Night Shyamalan's daughter in it. I thought her character, again, not trying to spoil it too much, but in the second half, I thought she really like shined very well with what happened with her character. But Josh Hartnett, again, man, he just really sold it. I was thinking his character would have been perfect had this movie come out maybe a few years ago. I think it would have been perfect, like with like Split, like James McAvoy's character, just because they're both really good villains essentially in their own stories. So I really liked that aspect, but aside from that, it just with the unbalanced script, the pretty bad dialogue, and just it's not that long of a movie, but even the runtime felt kind of long for this story. So I'm gonna give it a 3 out of 5. I still really enjoyed it, mostly for Josh Hartnett. It had some really good moments to it, some thrilling scenes, but overall it's just okay. I think this is definitely a $5 Tuesday, or you can wait for it all to come out on streaming or something like that. But still a good movie to watch. If you're an M Night Shyamalan fan, especially the last few years of his like successful, like decently consistent movies, you may like this one, in my opinion.
Yeah, I would say definitely if you're curious about it, check it out on a discount day. That would be a pretty good a fair use of your time. I'll say going in knowing whether you like Shyamalan or not. I don't think this movie's gonna change your mind either way on him. For me, it didn't. I still think he's a very hit or miss director, and the movie itself was hit or miss for me. Like I said, the first half of the movie was really engaging, and I thought really worked for me. Even though some of those elements that you mentioned, like the wonky dialogue and the weird pacing and scripting of it was definitely there. I just thought the premise and the energy of it was there more so in the first half than in the second half. But like you mentioned, there are some interesting concepts there, and it might work better for you than it did for me. Like like you did for Rye. You really won't know until you see the movie, to be honest. But yeah, this one for me is going to be a 2 out of 5. I enjoyed most of it, but yeah, there were just those negative aspects of it really kind of drug it down for me, and I wanted to like it more than it did. And it is kind of interesting that this movie went with the PG-13 rating. I feel that also kind of played into sort of the neutering of probably what could have happened in the movie. I felt like it was a little bit tame for the sort of premise that it sort of sets up, but that's just me. I don't want to come off as someone with some crazy amount of bloodlust or anything, but when you have a serial killer running around, you expect sort of some things to happen, and it didn't really play out that way for me.
Yeah, I feel like I could definitely see what you're expecting. I get what you mean. It's not like we have to have gore, but for the situation, I think it may have benefited better from a more adult rating. Because, yeah, it felt pretty tame for a story like this. A serial killer really being pressured into certain situations and, like, trapped. So, yeah, I could see it going either way. Like, I'm fine with what we got, but I definitely wouldn't mind if they did, like, an uncut version where it's like he really got to cut loose. So
Yeah, I don't. It's not one of those things that I think is super detrimental. Kind of like the way I felt with the movie like Megan. That movie. I mean, it had a unrated cut later on, but I felt like the PG-13 did kind of neuter it, but it's not like a deal breaker for me, and I don't think it'll be a deal breaker for anyone. I just thought the movie could have used a little bit more bite, maybe just because of the weird things that were going on in it.
yeah, it may have helped balance it out a little bit, but other than that, everyone, for those of you who did happen to catch or who are happen to catch this movie this weekend or plan on seeing it, please let us know what you think of it in the comments, especially if you watched it or not. We love to keep the conversation going regarding that. And if you have, House of the Dragon is coming to an end unfortunately soon, so keep an eye out for that review. And man, we are getting some other good movies this month. Like there's that Cuckoo movie with Hunter Schafer. Alien Romulus is coming out. So more good things to come this month. So until next time, everyone, just stay bodacious and keep on ranting for us.
Absolutely, everybody. Be good, be safe, and as always, we'll catch y'all on the next one.